G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. We are back with an absolute fan favourite, of course. In today's video, we're going to be going over my top 10 games of the 2023 AFL home and away season. Always a fun video to do, of course, on the channel. We were treated to another fantastic season of AFL football in 2023. We had some great games across the span of the home and away season. Now, as always, if you are familiar with these types of videos, there are no finals games included in these types of videos. I only go over 10 games from only the home and away season, just because obviously with finals games they're always going to be in these kinds of videos, but you know, this just allows me to sort of reflect and sort of celebrate the awesome games we had in the home and away season. So I've handpicked 10 of my personal favorite ones. Now usually I do a ranking from 10th to 1st, but I just felt these games are so even, and I think people have their different opinions, and I felt it would just be a bit unnecessary. All these games I have today were quality, so instead I'm just going to be going over game by game with the top 10 I do have in today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you do go on to enjoy today's video. That'd be heavily appreciated, and let's get into it. So everyone, here we are. We're going to be going over my top 10 games of the 2023 home and away season. Kicking it off with an absolute ripper this one was Port Adelaide versus Collingwood from round 19. For weeks on end, people had this matchup circled in their calendars for a first versus second blockbuster. Collingwood was sitting comfortably in first. Meanwhile, Port Adelaide's 13-game win streak came to an end against Carlton the week prior. However, these were still the two top teams in the competition going at it. Expectations were high for this game, and it truly delivered. Both teams had a fast start, kicking 4 goals each to cap off a high-scoring first quarter. Every minute and every moment of this match felt like a finals game. The intensity and atmosphere was at a sky-high level. Some unselfish play from Jamie Elliott, giving it to Tyler Adams for a goal in his 200th game, kicked off the second quarter, before Port started to get the game on their terms. They kicked 3 unanswered goals and started to get on top around the footy. The Pies responded back with 2 quick goals to 𝐓𝐡𝐞 and 𝐼𝐴𝐿𝐿, and it seemed whenever Collingwood would take momentum and the lead, the Power were able to keep the margin at arm's length, thanks to a crowd-lifting chase-down tackle and a goal from Jason Horne-Francis. So we were set, Collingwood trailing by 17 at three-quarter time, but you just knew from all the classic finishes the Pies have played in that internally they were confident. The confidence showed. A blistering start from the Pies kicked off the final term, with 2 quick goals in a row inside 5 minutes to Sidebottom and Josh Dacos. Willie Rioli's set shot and LeBron James celebration fainted out the jeers from the Pies faithful after his strike on Nathan Murphy would land him in hot water and became a massive talking point post-game. Collingwood continued to find that extra gear. Some lovely end-to-end movement resulted in a Bobby Hill set shot goal to tie the scores. Port then responded back with a Finlayson snap. A costly defensive mistake from Kane Farrell resulted in an Elliott goal to regain the Pies' lead. Sam Powell-Pepper was having none of it, as his inside 50 craft came into play, bursting through a pack to put the pair back in front. The ground balls and 50-50s started to become more crucial as the fourth quarter wore on. It felt like the next goal would win their team the game. Someone needed to stand up. Enter Jamie Elliott time. The clutch performer stood up to the plate with a breathtaking kick from the boundary to put the Pies in the lead by a point with under 3 minutes and 15 seconds left to play. The game turned into an absolute scrap with time ticking. Port had their chances to potentially prevail, but the Pies' defence and on-ballers stood up as they would hold on and win a heavyweight thriller by 2 points. It surely was a night for some of the old wise heads of the Magpies. Scott Pendlebury, Sidebottom and Tyler Adams were huge in this famous Collingwood comeback from behind victory. Let's move over to the home of footy of the MCG, shall we? It has hosted some cracking games this year, of course, and it's hard to go past Essendon versus Richmond back in round 10. We are always blessed with fantastic atmosphere and pre-game celebrations with the annual Dreamtime game between the Dons and the Tigers, and the game itself did not disappoint. The Bombers were in desperate need of a win, dropping their last 4 games. The Tigers were looking to make it 3 on the trot, wanting to push up the ladder after their sluggish start to the season. Efficiency was hurting the Tigers early on. They were dominating inside 50s, but were not able to capitalise, as Sam Wiedemann made them pay with 2 goals in the first quarter to give them the lead at the first break. A seesawing affair continued after the first term, but inaccuracy started to creep in from both teams. Dusty Martin was able to break the drought though with his trademark snap. Kyle Langford booted home the first of the third to tie the scores 11 minutes in, but Shea Bolton started to turn up in the second half with 2 consecutive goals in the third term, including a lovely soccer from the boundary. A very gritty and even 3 quarters came to a close as Nick Hine made a crucial goal-saving spoil on the 3/4 time siren after a Dustin Martin snap, making it 12 points at 3/4 time, which was the game-high margin. Dusty again was on the scene in the final quarter, slotting home his second inside 90 seconds to bring the margin out to 3 goals. The Dons were not letting in, however. Led by an inspired Zach Merritt, Essendon snagged 2 in a row to cut the margin to a straight kick, including a Jake Stringer special from 60 metres out. Judson Clark made the Bombers pay after a poor turnover in their back half with a goal against the grain to get a settler for the Tigers. Essendon's momentum, however, kept on building as Sam Durham had a final quarter to remember. He bursted through a pack to set up a goal out the back for 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐸 to get the game back to 6 points. Ryan Mansell had the opportunity to seal the game with 3 minutes left to play, but unbelievably, his shot registered for no score as the game stayed at 5 points. With 90 seconds remaining, began one of Essendon's plays of the season. From full back, they were able to transition the footy at haste, win important ground balls, keep it in their forward half, and especially have the right players in the right spot. A spoil from Taranto that fell in Stringer's lap, centred the footy, and Sam Durham was able to get in front position against Rioli and take a mark with a certain goal coming up to put the Bombers in front by a point with virtually no time left. An amazing game to witness as a neutral. A gritty, seesawing affair saw the Bombers hold on by a single point in a Dreamtime classic. It was a shoulda, woulda, coulda performance from Richmond with poor efficiency and decision making costing them the game. But Essendon were able to dig deep with some star performances from the likes of Merritt, who was best on ground, Sam Durham and Ridley in their back half. We'll stay at the MCG and go over another thrilling match that Essendon took part in. Featuring one of the goals of the year, it is of course Essendon versus Port Adelaide from round 16. The Power were sitting in second place in terrific form, looking to make it 12 wins in a row. Meanwhile, Essendon were looking to maintain their spot in the 8, seeking a bounce-back result after a poor outing against Fremantle the previous week. Port started the game well with early goals from Rosie and Charlie Dixon, but were wasteful in front of goal, failing to capitalise on early inside 50 dominance. Jaden Laverde's perler from 50 metres out and Matt Guelfi's snap cut the margin to 5 points at quarter time. It turned into a seesawing battle in the second, with Essendon starting to lift around the contest. The Power managed 3 goals to 2 for the quarter to lead by 6 points at half-time, led by Farrell, who unleashed a trademark 55-metre goal and Connor Rosie's cracker of a set-shot goal from a tight angle. The Dons lifted in the premiership quarter, fueled with repeated and efficient inside 50 entries. Guelphy and Langford both kicked their second goals to open up a 7-point lead, capitalising on 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐸's careless turnover in defence. Butters got on the board to pull one back and level the scores as the rain set in, before Jake Stringer slotted a set shot to restore Essendon's lead to 9 points at the final change. With momentum changes all game, Port were able to get on top early in the final quarter, getting their lead back quickly with clutch set shots from Finlayson and Burton. Sam 𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐵 also started to lift, setting up a Rosie major, before Burn Jones seemed to seal the game with his goal at the back to make the margin 16 points with 9 minutes to play. The Bombers, however, had other ideas. They quickly responded with 3 consecutive goals, with Caldwell converting a set shot to put the Bombers in front by a point with 90 seconds left to add another crazy angle to this game. But it would be the pair who would have the final say. A clanger from Nick Martin resulted in an intercept from Dan Houston, requiring a thumping kick in the wet from 55 metres out after the siren. In one of the games and goals of the year, also including Kenny Smiling, Houston stood up to the plate and drove home an absolute belter to win the game for Port Adelaide and keep their winning streak alive. Just a shame that the score review gave it an anticlimactic ending, but did it make the moment better? So we just witnessed one of the goals of the year. How about a thrilling match with one of the marks of the year? It's hard to go past the Giants versus the Hawks way back in Gather Round. Both teams were sitting in the bottom 4, seeking their second win of the season, ready to battle it out on the narrow field of Norwood Oval. Hawthorn started the game well, with more fluency down the ground in the first 1.5 quarters, but GWS defence, led by Sam Taylor and Jack Buckley, stood firm. The Hawks were unable to add to their 2 opening goals until the final 6 minutes of the half. GWS were making the Hawks pay, exposing their smaller defence, with Jesse Hogan and Harry Himmelberg throwing their weight around, piling on 5 straight goals across the first half. The first overall pick of the draft, Aaron Cadman, also got on the board with his first major on debut. Tom Green was the star of the first half, showing his dominance in the stoppages. Connor Nash then went on to him to tag after the main break, as the Hawks started to lift. They booted home 4 majors in a row to give them the lead by 8 points at 3/4 time. Also at the expense of some poor GWS discipline, giving away a 100-metre penalty for a James Sicily goal. Hawks youngster Ned Long slotted a coolly taken shot on the run to give his side first blood in the final quarter, before GWS responded back with 2 quick snags, featuring some special stuff from Toby Green. Tyler Brockman made GWS pay with some costly misses, getting the lead back out to over a goal from some coast-to-coast play. The Giants continued to chip away at the scoreboard, then veteran Callan Ward launched home a wonderful set shot to tie the scores with 5 minutes remaining. The Hawks again were able to snag a goal from quick transition play, with Dylan Moore's snap putting Hawthorn back in the lead. Time was ticking and the Giants could not stop missing, with the game seeming to slip away out of GWS's reach with 9 goals 17. Harry Himmelberg out of nowhere rose into the clouds to take an insane pack mark 𝐓𝐶𝐞. He converted his set shot to give the Giants the lead by 3 points with 90 seconds left to play. Hawthorn had the last say in crunch time, relentlessly getting the ball inside 50. Jarman Impey found some space and had the chance to win the game for the Hawks with his 50-metre bomb. But that man again, Harry Himmelberg, was able to get his fingertips on it to save what would have been a go-ahead goal. And the Giants held on to snatch victory from the Hawks after some Harry Himmelberg heroics. Alongside the Berg, it couldn't have been done without some star performances from Sam Taylor down back, Toby Green with 3 goals, and Cornelio and Tom Green bossing it in the midfield. Let's stick with the Giants, shall we? Their epic encounter with crosstown rivals of the Swans wasn't a bad hit out at all back in round 7. A thrilling finish it truly was, with another Toby Green masterclass. The Swans were sitting at 3-3, needing a desperate bounce back result after their horror show the week before against the Catters to keep in touch with the 8. The Giants had lost 4 of their past 5 games prior to this Sydney Derby, but were showing some good upside and playing a hard-to-beat brand, coming in as the slight underdogs. The first half was a contrast of styles, as Sydney won most things in and around the footy, whilst the Giants looked more dangerous when they got the ball outside in space. Despite the Swans having 6 more inside 50s at half-time, the visitors led at the first 2 changes, with Toby Green and Xavier O'Halloran each kicking 2 goals. O'Halloran's second was a beautiful goal, as he slotted home a set shot from just outside the 50-metre arc, right on the boundary line. The Giants were able to keep the margin at arm's length for most of the first half, as they threatened to open up a larger lead, before Buddy Franklin helped arrest the momentum with a series of powerful marks, providing an entertaining matchup with Jack Buckley. The superstar hit back with 3 goals and an uncharacteristic miss from close range. The Bloods started to take control of their inside 50 use after the main break, kicking 6 goals to 3, 2 of them being from Logan McDonald, showing a promising performance as they continued to assert their dominance around the footy. Early goals in the 4th term were critical for the Swans, with Ryan Clark and Luke Parker getting on the end of their opportunities to push the margin out to 4 goals. Harry Himmelberg slotted a crafty snap to get one back, before Chad Warner would do the exact same, keeping the margin out at arm's length and possibly just looking like it's the Swans' day. But the Giants were not letting in. As the 4th term wore on, all of a sudden they turned it up a gear, with some complacency kicking in for the Swans. Their ball use inside 50 and stoppage work became lazy, as the Orange team were able to rebound quickly and get on top of the inside 50 stoppages, kick-started with a Toby Green special from something out of nothing, followed by another 2 unanswered goals from Harry Perryman. As the game entered crunch time with under 2 minutes to play, Sydney were able to keep it mostly in their forward half, looking like they just might hold on. But the Giants were able to move it coast to coast and set the ball up for another forward 50 stoppage. This was where the Swans were conceding a lot of their points from, so it was a big opportunity for GWS. With momentum on their side, kicking the last 3 goals of the game, 𝐓𝐴𝐵 was able to take it out of the ruck, hand pass it to somehow a freed up Toby Green, and in Toby Green style, snap home a cracker from 30 out, ripping the hearts out of the Swans faithful. It was the All-Australian captain's 4th goal of the game, who would eventually go on to win the Brett Kirk medal, as the Giants snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, storming home and kicking the last 4 goals of the game. It might have been early in the season, but that performance of mental toughness and 4th quarter efforts would be the trademark as the season wore on. A highly physical, seesawing battle with brilliant moments from both sides, and an epic Sydney Derby finish deserved a spot in today's top 10. Moving on to the next game now, we'll stay at the SCG. This venue hosted a lot of insane and quite honestly weird games across the span of 2023. And one that is hard to go past is the Swans versus Port Adelaide back in round 4. A clash that contained all the drama right until the final siren. Coming off a 50-point loss at the G to Melbourne, Sydney were looking to get back into the winner's circle, hosting a shaky Port Adelaide outfit who had slumped to 1-2 after their impressive win over Brisbane in the opening round. Right from the centre bounce, the first half was a scrappy contest. Repeated stoppages, low scoring, and troops were going down, including the McCartan brothers, both subbed out to concussion and unfortunately Paddy McCartan's very last game. Sydney were able to get on top early, however, with their forward half possession, kicking the first 4 goals of the game. As the second term wore on, the contest looked almost over before 𝐓𝐴𝐵𝗹's wobbly snap was confirmed via goal review 17 minutes into the second quarter. Suddenly, a switch was flicked. By half-time, the scores were level after Finlayson, Zach Butters and Jason Horne-Francis converted their chances. Finlayson gave Port Adelaide the perfect start to the second half to maintain the momentum, kicking his second from outside 50 after pinning Peter Ladhams holding the ball. The pair matched everything Sydney threw at them, before Florent kicked Sydney's first goal in 45 minutes, halfway through the third quarter, to level the scores. The Swannies midfield started to stand up, especially Chad Warner, who almost changed the game. The Chad exploded out of the centre and stoppages on multiple occasions, finding targets inside 50, and then nailed a high quality goal to put the Swans 14 points up. Isaac Heaney converted his set shot to get the first goal of the final term, and with their forward half dominance, you felt they would be home. But just like the second term, Port again found a way to flick the switch and make this game interesting. After 4 behinds in a row from Kenny Hinkley's men, Todd Marshall was able to slot a coolly taken set shot from the boundary, and the floodgates were wide open for the power. Connor Rozee nailed his opportunity off a free kick to get the game to 4 points, followed by another set shot goal from transition by pressure forward Jed McEntee to put them back in front. With the game under 5 minutes to play, Port's defence was standing tall, heavily led by 𝐼𝐴𝐵𝗹, who had an outstanding game that night. But a lack of discipline crept into Charlie Dixon, who gave away a costly 50-metre penalty, which allowed Nick Blakey to put the Swans back in front with 2.5 minutes to play. But straight from the centre bounce, Port Adelaide were able to get it quickly inside 50 and find Finlayson, who took an outstanding juggling mark and was able to snap home his 3rd goal and give Port their lead back. All of a sudden, there's 45 seconds left on the clock, the ball bobbling in the Swans' back half. Rampy was able to quickly find Heaney in the corridor and then lace out a free man out the back at half forward of Oliver Florent, who had the chance to win the game after the siren. So Florent, who had a brilliant performance that night with 32 touches and a goal, could he be the hero for Sydney with a major from 45 out on a slight angle? The siren sounded as he took his kick. It was online. The crowd was up. Even I was up. The players were celebrating. It looked like he flushed his shot. But unfortunately, he did not have the distance, as 𝐼𝐴𝐵𝗹 was again the hero, getting in the way and punching the ball on the line to give the Power their second win of the season in an insane and crazy finish to this low-scoring cagey affair. So in terms of obscure finishes to a game of AFL football, it's hard to go past this one. Florence Opportunity denied his side the 4 premiership points for Sydney, despite registering a massive 22 more inside 50s to the Power and twice leading by at least 20 points. And who'd have thunk it? After this win for Port Adelaide, they'll go on to win their next 12 games in a row. As a Swan supporter, I feel a bit of PTSD creeping in. So let's change gears for my own mental health. The King's Birthday Big Freeze clash in round 13 was a fantastic hit-out between two high-quality sides. The Collingwood Footy Club were proudly sitting on top of the competition with an 11-1 record, beating challengers convincingly left, right and centre. They were chock full of confidence heading into the Big Freeze clash against Melbourne, beating them twice last year and being undefeated at the G so far this season. Melbourne knew what was ahead of them, and they would have to rely on their highly talented defence and midfield group to get this win. Collingwood, being known for their fast starts, were able to put that on display right from the get-go, kicking the first 3 goals inside 15 minutes. For a moment it looked like there was a chance of a blowout, but Melbourne was settled. They steadied and held the Pies' overlap run and were calm in defence. The Demons ended up with the final 7 inside 50s of the first quarter, but kicked 1 goal free to 3 goals 1 with another 𝐓𝐡𝐞 shot falling short. Prior to this game, Melbourne's inside 50 delivery the past few weeks was hurting their ability to score well, but they were certainly sharper going into attack in the first half. But it still wasn't at its very best, as the likes of Darcy Moore and Nathan Murphy made life difficult at times for the D's forwards in the air. Bailey Fritsch was locked in an intriguing battle with Darcy Moore, the taller Pie occasionally having the edge overhead, but the Demons' leading goal kicker proving difficult to beat on lead. Collingwood found it difficult to find room to move in attack at times, with Melbourne quick to run back and clog up leading lanes and the corridor, forcing the Pies to enter inside 50 around the boundary. Joel Smith completed his own 7-point play after an inaccurate opening 10 minutes of the third quarter from Melbourne, missing a shot from 40 out but capitalising from 20 out just a minute later to cut the margin to 1 point. Bailey Fritsch quickly tacked on his third major to give the Demons back the lead. When it looked like the floodgates were open, it turned into a stalemate. Reef McInnes had a moment he'd like to forget down the other end, missing his boot when running into an open goal. As the game progressed, Collingwood struggled with its forward structure. The Pies would finally get a fast break, only to find their forward half stacked with Melbourne players, as they just took only 7 marks inside 50. Brodie Grundy slotted home a goal against his former side to the boos of the Magpie Army, before Beau McCreary got one back to keep the margin around a goal before 3-quarter time. Returning Pie, Pat Lipinski had cut the margin to 1 point at the start of the final term with his second goal, but the inaccuracy and the behinds kept them building for the D's. They were blowing chance after chance to get the margin back out, kicking 3 straight behinds from set shots, before Alex Neil-Bullen finally bared fruit for them. Melbourne's momentum continued to build. A huge defensive play from Judd McVie and 𝐼𝐻𝐸 cancelled another Collingwood attack through the corridor, quickly rebounding off the turnover and finding Van Rooyen inside 50, going back and giving Melbourne a crucial 16-point margin. Melbourne again continued to keep Collingwood at bay behind the footy as time was ticking. However, Collingwood, as is now tradition, put everyone on edge with 2 quick goals from Brodie Mihocek and Nick Dacos in the final 90 seconds, closing the margin to 4 points with 26 seconds left, and all of a sudden turning this game into a bit of a thriller. It all came down to the final centre bounce, were Collingwood able to snatch victory from nowhere with a clean break out of the middle. But Jack Viney, who was instrumental on the day, won his 9th and final clearance to bomb the ball to safety of a vacant Melbourne forward line, as a siren sounded to cap off a thrilling contest on a great day for football. The Demons knocked off the top Pies and their own goal-kicking issues, clawing their way to the front in the third quarter and holding their nerve to close out an 8-goal-18 to 9-goal-8 victory. Viney, of course, was named the Neil Danaher medalist as best of field for the tough-fought win, with over 32 disposals and 9 clearances. It's always a rare feat for the premiers of Collingwood being on the wrong end of a close result. Let's now go over one of their greatest close wins of the year, that being against the Adelaide Crows. But which one? The Pies were able to knock off the Crows twice this year, with both games being under a goal. The round 7 clash in Adelaide was a ripping finish, but in terms of four-quarter quality and shared momentum from both sides, it is hard to go past their hit-out in round 15 at the G. A highly entertaining 2.5 hours of football this game truly was, with an added spice of drama and controversy at the end. Adelaide made the better start, with both teams emerging from the bye rusty early, but it was the 𝐓𝐴 show from the get-go. Without 𝐵𝐴 tagging him like last time, Nick punished the Crows early, combining with Josh for 22 𝐓𝐴 disposals at 100% efficiency by foot in the first quarter. A scrappy and inaccurate opening term started to open up in the second. Jamie Elliott, in the space of a few moments, kicked the first 2 goals of the term to start the alarm bells ringing for Matty Nix's boys. Collingwood's ball skills and transition continued to go up a few gears. Bobby Hill kicked a lovely team-involving goal as the Pies got the jump in the second quarter, kicking 5 goals 1 to Adelaide's 1 goal 3. The Crows were constantly second to the footy in the first half, couldn't defend the transition, and had a lack of confidence and composure when moving the footy forward of centre. It felt like it would be another convincing Collingwood win at home. Yet just when Adelaide looked like remaining winless at the MCG for another visit, the Crows ran rampant and flicked a switch like they have done often in 2023. They kicked all 7 goals of the third quarter to breathe life into a cold Melbourne day. In the space of 30 minutes, Collingwood's 27-point half-time lead had become a 13-point deficit as the Crows showed why they were in the hunt for a return to September. Taylor Walker came to life after half-time, kicking 3 goals in the premiership quarter. Jordan Dawson as well was another individual who stood up, becoming the nucleus on moving the footy and winning ground level contests. Young forward Harvey Harrison ended the rout by kicking the first goal of the fourth quarter to reduce the margin to single digits. But it was only before Walker got the instant reply, kicking his 4th thanks to a lovely delivery from the big man Riley O'Brien. At one end it was the Tex, but at the other end entered the Texan. As the finals-like pressure and intensity building from both sides, Mason Cox grabbed 2 huge contested marks in the space of 2 minutes and punched home 2 majors in a row to cut the margin to just 1 point. The American is never afraid to push the envelope when it comes to letting opposition know he is making an impact. The goggles went flying and the intensity went through the roof. Dawson again was able to get it out of the middle, and Isaac Rankin almost got a goal back for Adelaide, but the score review denied his opportunity in a hard-to-judge goal line potential toe poke. The composure was lacking in Adelaide's forward half, kicking consecutive points, but so was the discipline. A late tackle and bump on Nick 𝐓𝐴 allowed the young star to give Collingwood the lead with 8 minutes to play. A quick goal from the centre bounce gave the Maggies then a 7-point lead thanks to a Hoskin Elliott snap, making it 5 goals straight for Collingwood in a hectic afternoon of football. But the game wasn't over yet. Taylor Walker stood up again and kicked his 5th goal with some bold movement from transition, cutting the margin back to 1 point with a bit over 3 minutes to play. But just like so many times we've seen across this season, Collingwood's well-drilled defence didn't allow another easy score with the clock ticking. The game turned into big moments, including a huge tackle from John Noble on 𝐵𝐴, forcing stoppage after stoppage. Adelaide, with their last inside 50 of the game, had a chance with Dawson on the half-volley pickup, but fumbled and looked to be clipped high from Jamie Elliott. This became the biggest talking point of the match, with Adelaide fans on social media and many neutrals not happy with the decision. But it was always going to be a hard call to judge, given it happened so quickly and suddenly. Collingwood were able to get it out cleanly from defence and seal off another outstanding finish. Despite a ferocious and gallant finish from the Crows, the Premiers showed why they were on the top of the ladder for a reason, as they held on and stood firm in the crucial moments in another epic finish at the MCG. Now moving on to game number 9 in today's video. We'll stay at the MCG for this one. Melbourne's comeback from behind win against the Lions in round 18 had many of us on the edge of our seats. The D's had dropped 2 of their last 3 games in poor fashion. Their goal kicking and inside 50 use was their Achilles heel. They knew they would have to put on a good amount of goals against a highly scoring side of Brisbane. Heading into this game, Brisbane had the chance to make it 5 on the trot, 2 games clear at third spot, and were definitely confident on knocking over the Ds, with of course not only beating them well at home early in the year, but also at this venue in finals footy last year. 𝐓𝐴𝐴 in the middle meant 𝐵ristian Petrarca started forward and had an ominous start, booting 2 goals in the first 7 minutes, including a pearler from outside 50 when he was afforded far too much room. Brisbane found a pulse through Zac Bailey after conceding the first 4 goals, and whenever the Lions would snag home a goal, Melbourne always seemed to respond back, capping off an entertaining first term with 6 goals from the Ds and 3 from Brisbane. The Lions looked settled and moved the ball better halfway throughout the first term onwards, and were able to translate it into scoreboard pressure, kicking 5 goals to the Demons 2 in the second quarter, featuring some lovely goals on the run and from transition, to give them a small 1-point lead at the half. Brisbane's midfield kicked into gear in the premiership quarter, led by Lachie Neale. The Brownlow medalists had a tough first half, recording just 6 disposals, but won the first 2 clearances of the third term and set Jack Gunston up for his second major as the Lions piled on 4 straight goals. Melbourne's fearsome defence struggled to have an impact airily after the first quarter, with the Lions' sharp ball movement spreading the Demons thin, leaving them unable to intercept across the second and third terms. The Lions' forward half and ball movement was superb across the span of the third quarter, dominating Melbourne in many aspects of the game as they headed into the final break with a 21-point margin. Joe Daniher, who was everywhere in their forward half, kicked his second and the first of the final quarter. Following this, the Lions were 28 points ahead in the final term, but much as they did earlier this year in the infamous lights out game between the pair, they went into their shells while the Ds finished full of running. The Demons were trailing by 24 points with just 7:08 remaining before 𝐓𝐴𝐴 kicked a goal on the run. Then Jake Melksham snapped home a set shot from the pocket to cut the margin to 2 goals with under 5 minutes to play. Brisbane's confidence on moving the footy end to end all of a sudden became non-existent as the repeated entries came for Melbourne. Jack Viney bursted through a stoppage inside 50 and squeezed through a third unanswered goal for Melbourne to cut it to a 5-point deficit all of a sudden with the tick over 2 minutes left. Just when you thought this game couldn't go up another notch, Melbourne got the footy forward from a stoppage and Jake Melksham again stood tall with a huge contested mark, went back and gave Melbourne the hard-to-believe lead in the space of just 6 minutes. With the Ds up by a point as the clock ticked down, Jake Lever and Eric Hipwood appeared to simultaneously mark the footy on the Lions' forward 50 arc as the siren sounded, but the umpire awarded the mark to the Ds defender, much to Hipwood's dismay, to break Lions' hearts. But it was jubilation for the Demons fans and players, an unbelievable comeback win, kicking the last 4 goals of the game in just 7 minutes, with Jake Melksham the hero, sealing the barely believable result. So much to love about this Melbourne side of things, an important 4 points to keep themselves in the top 4, but in retrospect, certainly a lot of questions had to be said to the Lions. How on earth did they choke that? And now we move on to the final game of today's video. Perhaps I've saved the best game till last. It's certainly one of my favourite games of this home and away season. Why, of course, it was the Port Adelaide versus Melbourne thriller at Adelaide Oval back in round 10. A match where superstars showed their worth, and the game where Zach Butters announced himself to the competition that he is an elite footballer. Heading into this game, it was a second versus fourth clash, with both teams at 7 wins and 2 losses. Port were on fire since round 4, winning every game up to this fixture. Melbourne were chipping away nicely in the winning column as well, but it had been over 5 weeks since the Ds were playing a top 8 side, so they knew they would have to bring their best, coming over to the hostile territory of a wet and slippery Adelaide Oval. Following an even opening 15 minutes, Port put a gap in the scores late in the first quarter, with suffocating pressure and clever ball movement. Butters and Rosie combined for 23 first quarter disposals, and a goal to Horn Francis right on the siren gave the hosts a deserved 12-point lead at the first change. The dominance in the forward half territory continued for much of the second quarter, but with most set shots coming from around the 50-metre arc, they never quite established the lead that felt on offer. Sharpshooter 𝐵𝐵𝐵 kept the Ds in the contest with the final 2 goals of the half, the second coming from 50 metres, to reduce the margin to just 14 points. Simon Goodwin's men knew that they were below their best in the first half, but flicked the switch in the third quarter with 6 consecutive goals to take the energy out of the home crowd. All of a sudden, Port's forward half use and dominance was eliminated from the Ds as the Demons midfield stood up, especially Christian Petrarca and Clayton Oliver, who both had quiet first halves. With Melbourne's turnaround, they were now leading by 17 points just before the end of the third term. But Zach Butters was having none of it. The star young midfielder was everywhere across the evening, ending up with a whopping 42 disposals and kicking an inspirational set shot from the 50-metre arc after the siren to cut the margin to 11 points. The low-scoring game turned into a real scrap in the final quarter. Jeremy Finlayson converted his set shot to give the Power first blood in the fourth term. Port's forward half pressure lifted. Zach Butters again was pulling the strings, being involved in his side's third goal in a row through young key forward Ollie Lord to get back the lead. Then against the grain, Christian Petrarca performed a huge individual moment, smothering a kick, grabbing an outnumbered ground ball and delivering the pill to Tom McDonald out the back, who kicked truly to give the Ds back the lead by 2 points with 8 minutes to play. The game was entering crunch time as the rain started to fall, ball skills started to drop and the intensity started to lift. Dan Houston got the ball deep inside 50 and with Melbourne defenders slipping whilst Burn Jones and Finlayson weren't, Jason Horne-Francis executed a lovely one-handed pickup at the top of the goal square, gave the quick hands to Connor Rozee and snapped truly to bring the house down for the Port Adelaide faithful and put his side back in the lead by 4 with a bit under 5 minutes left to play. As the time ticked, Port seemed they wanted it more. They were able to win the more 50-50s and lock the ball in their forward half. Ryan Burton produced a brilliant mark in their defensive 50 with under 2 minutes remaining. The footy was camped on the non-commentary side of the ground for the duration of the game. Whenever the Ds whacked it forward, Port would rebound and repel in defence. The game came to the last boundary throw-in, but to Melbourne's dismay, it was a poorly done throw-in, which allowed Lysette to read it best, palm it down to 𝐵𝐵𝐵𝗹, who booted the footy forward and sealed off one of the games of the year to continue Port Adelaide's brilliant winning streak. The Port Adelaide fans were up and about, and so was Kenny, dancing in delight. Of course, the main outlook from this game was Zach Butters. The 22-year-old finished with a career-high 41 disposals, 2 goals and 9 clearances, but it was the quality of his ball use that shone on a wet night in Adelaide. So everyone, there is my top 10 games of the 2023 AFL home and away season. Hopefully all of you lot did enjoy. Always a fun video to do, but always a lengthy one to do. Plenty of time was put into this video. The script was over 6,500 words. Obviously compiling all the highlights too does take some time, so it is thoroughly appreciated for people, if they did enjoy, to leave a like and subscribe. And also comment down below, let me know what you did think of my top 10. Would you include a few other games? Obviously I didn't include any honourable mentions, would have loved to, but you know, probably would have brought the video out a little bit too long in length. But yeah, love to hear your thoughts, fellas' thoughts down in the comments below of maybe some games I didn't include. Once again everyone, thank you very much for tuning into today's video. Really appreciate the support across the span of this 2023 AFL season, and I'm keen of course to get into the off-season content. So obviously the frequency of uploads will decrease, but still we'll be getting content out across the month. So yeah, appreciate the support everyone. And yeah, apart from that, I will talk to you later. See you later, fellas.